Let's split it right down the middle.
All right.
50% goes to Russ, 50% goes to the organization. That's just the reality of it, okay? When the organization acquired Russell for all that they gave up, which is probably going to go down as of right now in the worst trade in the history of the National Football League.
Yeah.
You know, even though the Dallas Cowboys got Minnesota on that one, that wasn't a bad deal because Dallas went on to win 3 Super Bowls.
Yeah, Herschel Walker.
Yeah, Herschel Walker deal.
As Jimmy called it, the great train robbery. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was it was one of the best. So it was the worst for Minnesota, but not the worst in the history of the National Football League. When you look at the amount of capital that was given, and you mentioned some of it, 2 first-rounders, a 2nd-round pick, a 5th-round pick, a 2nd-round pick again in 2023, and 3 players, and all they got back is Russell Wilson and a 4th-round pick. Ugh. That doesn't, it's just the worst thing ever. Okay, let's move on from that. He can still play. There's no question about it. They did him a disservice when they hired Nathaniel Hackett as a head coach.
I agree.
They did him a disservice.
Yeah.
They didn't bring in somebody with experience, someone who understood, and they allowed him to run wild and do whatever it is that he wanted to do. Whatever Russell wanted, whether it was 18 lockers, his own office. I've never played in the league for a long time, been around the league, covering the league for a long time.
You have.
Never, ever heard somebody having their own office that wasn't part of the administration of the football team.
Neither have I.
So you look at that, you go, okay. Then I knew immediately when Sean Payton went ham on him, which, by the way, I hate that for Sean and I hate it for him. It's just one of those bad moments.
It's just a terrible
It's just and I know Sean very, 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 very well. It's just a bad moment to look at because you wouldn't treat Drew Brees that way.
You would not.
You know, you wouldn't treat other quarterbacks that way, so why did you do that to Russell Wilson? It's just
wasn't that the moment that said, this is over?
You know, I talked to Sean at the beginning of the season when he first got there and they went through camps and all that. I had a conversation with him about Russ. And when he said to me, I like him, he didn't say I love him.
Yeah.
He didn't give. So I knew immediately it was not going to go smooth. He was coming in to the building with one eye open with a toothpick in it and the other one closed about who Russell Wilson was. Yeah. Regardless if he coached him before in some Pro Bowl games and all that other stuff, doesn't matter. That's the Pro Bowl. He didn't get a chance to see him as his main quarterback. Now Russell Wilson is gone.
Yeah.
He's no longer in Denver. You know, he's got to find a home. $39 million will be given to him throughout the course of the 36 weeks of guaranteed money this year. They get paid 36 weeks in the National Football League. He will get the checks. He will be paid. So now for Russell Wilson, where do I go?
So he's a great buy for somebody because he's got his money.
You can give him, I don't know, 10
Peanuts.
cents on the dollar, whatever it is.
Correct.
Because he's not looking to try to double down and make money and all that. It's fine. I got my 39. You got to put me on the salary cap somewhere. Give me the veteran minimum from where I'm at in my career. I'm moving on. I'll make $40 million this year, and I'll move on. Now you start talking about the teams. What makes the most sense? The more and more I start to look at this, I say to myself, Minnesota probably won't let Kirk Cousins out of the building. They're probably going to give him some money to re-sign. Let's assume that Kirk Cousins,
buy that.
Let's assume he goes to Minnesota.
Okay, stays. Yeah.
I mean, it stays in Minnesota.
Yeah.
I don't know that the Raiders, who've seen him up close in person for 4 games over the last 2 years, are going to want to. Plus, I don't think Antonio Pierce's, as a head coach, personality would mesh with Russell Wilson. So let's cross them off the list as well. Now I start to look at the Steelers, and I go, they say, no, Kenny Pickett's our guy. We believe in him. So they've kind of already publicly out there said, nah, I don't really want no Russell Wilson for what it is. So I'm looking at that, and I'm saying, well, they probably like Justin Fields in a trade if Chicago is serious about getting rid of Justin Fields. So let's cross them off the list and say that's not a landing spot in Pittsburgh. So now you're down to 2. You're down to the Atlanta Falcons, and here's a wild card team for you after I tell you about Atlanta. It would be interesting if Atlanta doesn't land Kirk Cousins, because I don't think Baker Mayfield will go to Atlanta when he can stay right there in Tampa with a team that knows him. So if you say, okay, Kirk Cousins he's gonna stay in Minnesota, Baker Mayfield stays over there, there's a window of opportunity in Atlanta for him, but do Raheem and company want to deal with that, with those young players in Russell Wilson in Atlanta, good receivers, good running game, solid defense? I don't know that they want to do that either. So here's one that makes all the sense in the world to me. Like, really, can Dan Quinn, who knows Russell Wilson,
he does,
from his days in Seattle, saw him, know him, all that. I don't know their personalities. I don't know if they had conflict. I don't know any of that. If Dan Quinn says...
on opposite sides of the ball, but go ahead.
But if Dan Quinn says, I need to build my roster, I need to get players. I'm sitting at the 2. There's quarterbacks in this draft that, we could draft if we choose to do so, but it's only costing me $1 million potentially to sign Russell Wilson, who is, by the way, one of the top quarterback, top second half type, second tier, bottom of the second tier quarterbacks right now in the National Football League. He is not a non-starter in the National League. He is a starting quarterback in the National Football League. Can Washington say, I could do something with my 2 pick, build my roster, because he fits perfect in my eyes in Cliff Kingsbury's system? Smaller quarterback, still has some run capabilities, and he can get the ball out extremely quick and fast, like they like to do in the air raid system. Does that make sense for Washington, especially if they don't get what they like at the quarterback position? Let's say Caleb goes, or let's say Jaden Daniels goes as one, or now they're sitting there and you're saying, even if I wanted to draft one of these young dudes, I got a veteran in Russell Wilson that could be a stopgap guy for a short amount of time to give us what we're looking for. How do we win? We run the football, we play hard-nosed defense, and we allow a guy like this to do what he does in the passing game, because I won a Super Bowl with him. I was there. I understand that. That's a good fit, in my opinion. I don't know their relationship, but if I'm Washington for $1 million, I'm looking at that.
Okay. We're going to talk about this a little later. I believe that with the new owner and Josh Harris, for whom I have great respect in Washington, they want to start over and start fresh and relight the fuse to that traditional, emotional Redskins dynamite. I'm using the old name from the past, the glory days of the past. And I'm pretty sure they're going to try to trade up with Chicago to get Caleb Williams because he's from D.C. We're going to go into that more in just a few minutes. I don't know that Russell Wilson would flip the new switch in D.C. the way a Caleb would, giving new hope, because Russ was such a quote-unquote failure in Denver. He went 11-19 as their starting quarterback. Okay, quick, you used a great analogy for Sean Payton. You said you thought he had one eye closed and one eye propped open with the toothpick. And I want to tell the kids at home, don't try that at home. Don't try that. It probably won't work.
Hopefully kids is on their way to school now.
It's a cartoon sort of reference, but in cartoons they
don't try that at home.
Don't try it at home. Okay. Quickly on what happened to Russ in Denver. I agree with you about Nathaniel Hackett. I've known Nathaniel since he was like 8 years old because I was very close to his father, who coached for a while at your school. Was a head coach at Pitt. Wasn't a great head coach. He was a great offensive coordinator and offensive mind, and was slated to be the successor to Tom Landry in Dallas before Jerry Jones bought the Dallas Cowboys, and that was the end of the old regime. But Tex Schramm, running the old regime, had slated Paul Hackett to be the next Dallas Cowboy head coach. The point is...
Dodged that bullet, didn't you?
Yeah, well, you could argue after what Paul didn't do for your school, and I was very close to that, close to Dennis Thurman and that staff, but it was a grind for you guys. Probably not cut out to be a head coach, but we see that again and again. And like father, like son, I'm not sure Nathaniel is cut out to be a head coach. He got thrown into a fire, and Denver's another sleeping giant of a tradition where they've got lots of Super Bowl tradition. Obviously, Peyton won the last one. And now what? Nathaniel Hackett. And for whatever reason, he and Russ did not click. And I'm going to give Russ this. Over the last 2 years, he was the most sacked quarterback in all of pro football. I'm going to give you that. And yet, when you talk about 50-50 blame, I think that should be split about 50-50 because Russ is still trying. Remember, Russ was Caleb Williams before Caleb Williams. In his glory days in Seattle, he's off script, off platform. He's out the pocket. He's going to make up plays. He was at his best when he was creating on the backyard fly, right? That's where they did the most damage because, listen, in his first, say, 5 years in the league, he was difficult to control because, well, I don't know, what do we give him, 5'11"-ish, 5'11" and a half, maybe?
Yeah. But what you got to understand, though, Skip, is Russ has never played under this type of pressure nor scrutiny in Denver. That pressure to be traded, to be the savior.
Not that there wasn't pressure in Seattle.
No, there wasn't any pressure.
There
was not the pressure in Seattle the same way it was in Denver.
And remember, he got to rise with the Legion of Boom.
He got to rise with the Legion of Boom that was there to protect him.
It was.
And then once he became Russ Cook, it still wasn't pressure because he had already won a Super Bowl and taken him to a second Super Bowl. So it wasn't pressure.
Sort of eased into it. Then the pressure mounted after they lost the Super Bowl to New England. Like, now what you got?
To some degree, it did. But he still individually was playing at a Pro Bowl level, so it was okay. When you get traded for all these picks and these players in $200-something million, and now all of a sudden you're going to be the guy that takes us back to the John Elway / Peyton Manning, Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware days. It didn't happen. That's pressure. Now you got a coach that's coming in. You're looking over your shoulder literally every single week. You already know that, he doesn't really like me the way that I want him to like me, and I'm not doing what he wants me to do. And then they come to you and they tell you they want you to get rid of your guaranteed money due to injury on the following year, so you already know you in for it. Now, remind you, this didn't happen when they went to him and set him down to say, hey, we need you to make an adjustment in your contract. This didn't happen in December. This happened in the beginning and middle of the season.
It did.
So they had already started planning the exit strategy for Russell to no longer be a Denver Bronco.
Okay, I got it. Back to the sacks. League-leading number of sacks allowed on Russell Wilson. Again, 50-50 because a lot of times he's trying to escape, and it's creating sacks because he's not quite as quick or athletic as he used to be.
But your offensive line ain't protecting him. That's why he's trying to escape.
Okay, 50-50. But Russell Wilson, quote-unquote, died for that Seahawks cause many, many Sundays. He took a lot of punishment because he took off with the football a lot. And he got banged around a lot. And he's not the biggest guy, though he's got stature and he's stout, put together.
Thicky.
Yeah, he's thick. And yet, when he got to Denver, first I'm gonna do the yin and the yang of this. I'm gonna read a quote from an AFC personnel man I saw on ESPN yesterday. This is about how well Russ did play last year. This is an anonymous quote, but it's a good one. He said, he actually played well during their midseason winning streak. He's still a good quality starter. He can still make all the throws, still mobile. Honestly, his skills haven't declined that much. It's more about his fit as a person. His teammates seem to like him in Denver. Okay.
I agree.
Okay. That's the bingo here.
I agree.
All right. So the quarterback I saw, the quarterback I heard about from people I know in Denver and people who work closely with him, was a guy who came to his own office in Denver into the 4-year, $260 million contract, having made it in the shade. And obviously he's now married to a woman who's very successful in her own right, who has her own money. So as a family, they're pretty good, okay. So as you well know, this position that he plays, to me, it's the hardest position to play in sports. And it requires obsessive dedication to play it at the highest level. I'm not sure he was obsessively dedicated to it the way he was early on in Seattle because he's got kids, he's got the wife, he's got a happy family. And as you know, it takes time. It takes focus away from what has to be a monomaniacal focus.
Are you suggesting that maybe he became a little bit more entertainment, Hollywood.
That.
Sort of.
Yes.
Is that what you suggesting?
That's what I'm suggesting, because a lot of people have suggested that.
No, you may be 99.9% right.
I just might be right.
You might be right.
Okay, so that brings us back to fit. You passed over one team. I'm going to throw this out. I am the biggest Mike Tomlin fan. And while I'm almost certain that Russ would not fit with Antonio, Mike's been doing this for a long time, because he was your coach once upon a time in Tampa as an assistant coach.
Yeah, he was our DB coach.
Yeah. So is it possible that Mike would be the one guy who would say, you know what? I'm a defensive coach. I'm not going to try to coach him schematically or technically, but I can coach him emotionally. Maybe I can get him back into a place psychologically, emotionally, where I can rebuild his confidence. And whatever he has left, I can maximize it, because I think he could be a little bit better than the current starter that you talk about that they have been trying to push.
Yeah, but they publicly said
they did
that they are not pursuing veteran quarterbacks. So I take that lead as they're not pursuing veteran quarterbacks. Does it change the mind now?
Yeah.
Now that he's actually free? Now that he's actually there, and they're looking at the number and they're saying, well, it's only going to cost us a minimum, a veteran minimum?
Bargain basement.
Yeah.
It's like you can steal Russell Wilson.
Is he better than their quarterbacks? Absolutely.
He's better.
He's better than their quarterbacks, for sure. And Mike Tomlin is not going to treat him the same way Sean Payton treated him, no question at all.
Okay.
I think it would be fine, but I don't know that they would be interested.
I think that's a good word, is fine. It would be fine, and he would be a little bit better.
Oh, he's better than what they got.
He's just better.
No,
I agree.
better.
And he's got that much left.
100% better than what they have. But it's not as of right now, it's not a lot of teams available for Russ that makes sense.
No. And by the way, he's another one of those quarterbacks. He's not a backup quarterback type. Would he be happy to be a mentor for a year here or there, whoever it would be? I don't know. It's not like he's not built that way. He became a Hollywood star.
When you say a backup mentor type, are you suggesting not be a starter?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'll stay home and get my $39 million.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not there in my career to do that yet.
Because some of those...
This is not Joe Flacco.
Yeah, some of those options were, you're the 1A, you're not the 1.
Well, he needs to be the 1A.
Yeah.
Wherever he goes.
No, I mean, number 1. He needs to be.
Thanks for watching, Undisputed fans. Do you want more highlights from the show? Make sure to click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from Undisputed.